and welcome to the Love How Deep podcast with Brian and Heather Mayer. Our purpose is to equip married couples like you with resources that rely on the transformative power of God's Word to strengthen your relationship. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Love How Deep podcast. We are so excited that you're still tuning in to listen to us, and any newcomers, welcome to the podcast. Our prayer is that you continue to grow closer to God and closer to each other in your marriage. And today we have something a little bit different. Normally we have our episodes kind of outline formed, I guess, planned out, things that we're going to say and talk about, and scriptures and things like that, and examples, very well planned out. And today we're just going to do a little bit of off the cuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to just wing it. We're not going to map this out, because you and I are pretty good with planning and structure. And
yeah, I thrive off of that. Yeah. But today what we're going to do is use a deck of cards produced by Prepare and Rich, and it's, what are these cards called?
Couples communication cards.
Couples conversation cards.
Yes.
That's it. And they're just good conversations that you can have with each other to kind of help get you on the same page with some pretty heavy topics. And so we have picked out 9 questions that we want to go through. And we may or may not finish all of those today because we don't have this planned out. So if we don't finish it, then there will be a part 2 to this the following week. So we're just going to kind of wing it and go with it and just ask these questions and answer these questions, hopefully giving you some ideas and thoughts and just conversations.
So I think this is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot like, marriage in general, where you want to organically and genuinely, as things come up, talk about them from your heart and really your brain, whatever kind of pops up. Sometimes there's not a chance to say, well, let me go in my room and journal about this for an hour and then I'll come back out and talk. Sometimes you want to just talk from your heart. And I think that's what we're going to do a little bit here today, and we'll just see what happens, right?
I think so, yep. So, Brian, can I ask you the first question?
Sure.
You ready?
You
nervous?
We'll see.
Okay. And again, I just want to say these are questions that are on a card, so it's not like we may give you examples from our own marriage, but these are just questions that I think are common that many other couples out there may have. You may have these questions yourself, or some friends of yours might. So here we go. All right, Brian, here's the first question. Are you concerned that you are doing more than your share of the household tasks?
Yes. Oh, wait, no, that's not how I'm supposed to answer this. So, yeah, this is a very common question. I think we do hear this one a lot from couples. And I think a lot of it has to do with sometimes the gender roles. If you think about in the home, when it's a more traditional, I guess, setup where the roles kind of fall into where the wife typically might take care of the home and the husband takes care of the outside, it can feel a little bit like there's a disparity there, because things that need to get done in the home are typically things that have to get done like every day, like all day long.
Right.
Things on the outside, like mowing the grass, maybe that's a once a week thing or a once every couple of weeks. So there can be this tendency to feel like it's a little bit out of balance with that. So
I also think that, if both of you are working in the home and you have this traditionalist point of view, it's worth it to have a conversation of like, hey, maybe the woman doesn't have to do every single thing in the house with the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry and, getting the kids bathed and ready for bed and doing homework and all of that. And, it's, that may be okay. That may be what works for your family, but that is an awful lot to put on one person when both of you are working outside of the home. Mm-hmm. And so sharing those roles, I think, goes a long way. And it's important to have a conversation about that. Like, hey, let's kind of jot these things down. What are we both doing, and how can we help each other kind of relieve some of that pressure that you feel?
Right. And we've, this isn't easy to do, but with couples that disagree about the nature of the division of labor, one thing that we recommend is, if you can, switch up the roles, and maybe for a week you do everything that your spouse does and vice
Right.
versa. The only problem where that comes in is if one of you is a stay-at-home parent and the other is not. I know it can be a little bit difficult on
Right.
doing that because, again, things that need to get done throughout the day, it might be kind of hard for the one that works outside the home. But maybe
Right.
there's some things that you can do to switch it up.
Yeah, and one more thing I was going to suggest is that maybe you split up these roles by things that you like to do. As if we all like to do chores, right? But what do you not mind doing, and what do you totally hate doing? I don't like doing the dishes. So Brian does the dishes. I don't like scrubbing toilets. And so Brian scrubs the toilets and scoops the litter box because, let's face it, that's a toilet too.
That's true.
But
and I don't like cooking.
No, you don't like cooking.
I do like helping you, but
You
I
like to
don't
help.
want to be the main
Right.
cook. So.
Right. But I don't mind sweeping or mopping and that sort of thing, dusting. So, yeah, so we do have some things kind of split up based upon things that we don't mind doing, just to kind of help each other out that way too. Yeah.
Very good. All right.
You want to pick a
Did
question?
we do okay here on this first one?
Well, I don't know. Ask our listeners.
Okay. Oh, I'm not sure. This is about sex and affection, and I'm going to ask you this.
Okay.
So,
I'm nervous.
all right. Are you comfortable discussing sexual issues with your partner? If not, can you share why? And you can make this personal or talk about things that we hear from other couples.
No.
Okay, next question.
Next question. No, in all seriousness, for me, I think that has always been an uncomfortable thing for me to talk about, even with you. And we've been married how many years?
Almost 20.
Almost 20 years. Yeah. And
Is this a childhood thing? Is some of this?
I think so, because it was just, growing up, it was like sex was talked about as something that is saved for marriage, and and that it's wrong outside of the marriage, biblically based.
Which is a good thing. But
yes,
I think that
but
was
that
what
was kind of
focused on.
And
yeah,
just
we're not going to talk about it.
And just the anatomy of it all,
Mm-hmm.
how things work,
Mm-hmm.
and it's how babies are made.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, there wasn't much discussion about it. And so, then when I got married, it was like, flip the switch. Oh, you mean this is supposed to be fun? I mean, you explore each other in all these fantastic ways. And it's like, I still had a mental block to that. So I do feel like it is, something that you and I can talk about. And we do talk about. And if you're like me, where this is an uncomfortable thing, it's worth it just to do your best to get comfortable with it. And if you're the one in the relationship where your opinion is like, this is not a big deal, like let's just talk about sex, and affection, and what do you like, what do you not like, and how is sex different from affection, what do you need, and all of that. Like, if you're comfortable and your spouse is not, as the comfortable one, we want them to just get over it and just tell me what you're feeling. But I think it's important that you remain very patient and maybe ask some probing questions in a very kind and loving and understanding way, and keep that, judging out of it, I guess. And just be the encourager. I don't know, Brian, do you have anything to add to that? Because you're more comfortable with it than me.
Well, it's interesting. I had a few things.
And I hope my family's not listening.
Right.
I love y'all.
I had a few things I was going to say, and actually you said them all. The one big thing is you might be in a marriage where there's a difference in level of desire as far as frequency goes, or there might be a difference in level of excitement or doing something fun and a little bit different than
lights
the other
on
person.
Versus lights off.
Right. And so I was going to say exactly what you just said. It's like really communicating about it.
Yes.
And doing it non-judgmentally, because it's very hard. Like if one of you wants to come to the other and say, hey, this is what I'd like to try or to do differently? What do you think? And if you immediately get shut down with that and like you get a response back like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I would never do that. And, okay, fine. Maybe you don't want to do that, but can you say it in a more kind, loving way and not be so judgmental? Like, why would you even think that or say that? It's like, we're just trying to talk about what we want, what we like, what we desire. And if we can feel heard and understood and not judged, again, I'm kind of saying everything you just said.
Right.
And then I think that can build some intimacy. And then maybe there is a situation where you're like, well, before this came up, I didn't really want to do that. But now that we're talking about it more, hey, maybe that is something that I'll explore with you.
Right. I think so. And I do want to put a disclaimer in here that, we're not talking, when we're talking about trying new things, we are not talking about bringing a third party into this. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about pornography. We're not talking about anything like that would absolutely go against God, against Scripture. So we're talking about the intimacy between the two of you, you.
That's right.
And, I also wanted to just mention, that sex is different from affection. And we women need more affection, probably more than we need the sex, where men want the sex more than the affection. Keep in mind that while men are microwaves, women are crock pots. And so if you want the sex, start that affection hours before, outside of the bedroom door. Being affectionate, and sometimes, so many times, being affectionate does not mean that it's going to lead to the bedroom, but it's something that really speaks to us, that we just need that shoulder rub, that hand holding, that light, sweet, gentle kiss versus, the full on like make-out session. Yeah.
And that can be tough because generally speaking, I'm using generalities, women and men are different in that typically women want that emotional connection first, which is probably it could be even emotionally connecting through like the hand holding and the massages and things like that. And then that makes you more desiring of having sex. And then for men, a lot of times it's the opposite. It's like we want the sex and we're ready to kind of go. Like you said, we're the microwaves. And then once that happens for us, then now all of a sudden, wow, I feel so much more emotionally connected to you. And so it is. It's like a lot of times it's a flip. So it's not easy. But I just wanted to add that. All right. Ready to move on?
We got to stop talking about sex.
We sweated that one out.
Whew. Yeah. Okay. Sorry to our families for having to listen to your siblings and children talk about sex.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we weren't too graphic.
Okay. Brian, I have a question for you. Do you have concerns about your partner spending time with certain friends or coworkers?
Yeah, this is a very common issue. I think we deal a lot with it when we mentor couples. I deal a lot with it in my practice. And, this one can be a touchy subject because there can be some trust issues that kind of go along with this. I will say, personally speaking, in our marriage, I do feel like the entire time we've been married, we've never really had a problem with this. Maybe in the very beginning when you were coming out of a marriage where there were trust issues and we were trying to navigate together what was appropriate and what was not. So we had some conversations and discussions.
Right. Even as dating, because you didn't think there was anything wrong with going to lunch with some female coworkers and things like that. And where for me, because, I lived through affairs and things like that, to me, it was like, that's so taboo. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't, especially if you're dating me, then you need to tell those women, no, I'm not going to lunch with you unless some other guys come along, that sort of thing. I was very much affected by that, and where you didn't see anything wrong with it, but I did. We did have some good conversations about it, and a lot of that just involves sharing your feelings and your reasons why you think that that's not a good idea for your marriage. Rather than just saying, no, you can't do that. It's more important to share. I would prefer that you didn't do that. It hurts my feelings. It hurts my heart. It scares me. I have fears. And this is why. This is, give that because response.
Yeah. And we did have some heated discussions for sure. But I remember as we talked more and more about it, I did put myself in your shoes, and I thought, you know what? I don't really understand. Like for me, this I guess wouldn't be as much of an issue, but you know what? For you, it is, and you're my priority. Yeah. And then I think just over time, that response, it was more of like a head response, but then I think slowly it did kind of get into my heart, so to speak, where I just feel like, you know what? I don't even care to do that anymore. Right. It's not like, oh, I'm just now not doing this because you don't want me to do it. It really is you know what? That does make sense. I can see where even if you go into it and say nothing's going to happen or there's nothing to this, I mean, you don't know. So you definitely want to put up some guardrails and just be careful about
Absolutely.
Those types of things. So,
right. Yeah. Even if you feel like your spouse is hanging out with some friends that are poor influences and things like that, like you want to be able to share that. And, but you know, it's all about the way that you share it. Are you attacking your partner? Just automatically assuming that they're going to go down this bad road because their friends do, which makes them feel like you don't trust them? Mm-hmm. Or are you coming at it with those I statements of like, I feel very uncomfortable because,
mm-hmm.
and
right.
Yeah.
And
so
one thing I don't like when one spouse says to the other, well, it's you I trust. It's everyone else that I don't. I don't like that one, because it's basically what you're saying is I really don't trust you.
Right. That is kind of what you're saying. And this does come from your heart. Mm-hmm. And so it would go a long way to give the reasonings why you feel this way. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
You got another.
Wow. We are
question.
On a roll. I think we're doing well with this. All right. Let me pick out another card. We're going to talk a little bit about quality time. This question is for you, Heather. Do you feel the workload of planning quality time is shared relatively equally? Why or why not?
That's good. We do hear that from some of the couples that we work with, where she says, you know, everything that we do is something that I have planned. And I've looked at the husband and I said, all right, your homework this week is you plan the date, you pick the restaurant, and you just do it. And the wife says, it'll never happen. He's not going to do it. And I mean, I think that's a real thing. And I think that the one person in the relationship gets kind of tired of always planning it, because it can lead that planner to feel like I'm dragging you out to do this, and you must not really want to do it because you never plan. That may not be the case. It could be that that person is not interested in planning because they don't think about it, because their mind is on other things, because that quality time is maybe not their love language. Mm-hmm. There could be a number of reasons. So it's totally worth it to have a conversation about it. Hey, Brian, why do I feel like I always do the planning when I really feel like I would rather you plan it one time, we take turns, or you know, help me, give me some feedback, things like that. I think it's okay to find out, because you might learn that your spouse is, you know, not planning for a specific reason that you never knew, you know, and maybe your spouse tells you, I absolutely love when you plan these things for us to do. And I'm okay with you planning it all and me not being involved if you're okay with that too. That's one less thing for me to think about, but it doesn't mean that I'm not all in. I'm 100% all in. So you can see, like, good conversations can come from this.
Yeah, that's right. And we run into a lot of situations where, and I will say it's typically the females that are the ones that want to plan.
Yeah.
And then the males, we just kind of sit back and, you know, whatever you want. And we've had some couples that we've worked with where the males typically are just like, oh, whatever you want, honey, it's whatever you want. And while I get that the underlying reason for that is like, you know, I care about you and I want you to be happy. But usually what we hear from the females is, I want to know what your opinion is too. Your opinion matters, and I want you to be involved in this. And it's not out of like, I need you to do the heavy lifting. I mean, sometimes it is out of that, but I think a lot of times it's just like, I want you to have an opinion. I want to know what's important to you.
Yes.
So that we're both happy. And I don't want the only reason that you're happy as my husband is because I'm happy. I want you to be happy about this because you like it and you want to do this. So, yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah. And maybe
anything
you
else
do.
on that?
Yeah, just, another tip, maybe you do actually take turns planning these things. And, for Brian and I, we will go for a walk and then, solve all the problems of the world and make plans for our lives. And, so we'll plan a vacation. We'll figure out where we want to go. We talk about it. We're having a good conversation, many conversations really, about a place that we want to go. And so I will usually, if it's a B&B that we're going to stay at, a bed and breakfast, I will research a bunch of them and then I will present them. Hey, Brian, I found 5. Which one do you think? These are the pros and cons to both. And then we'll pick it from there. So he's involved that way. But I'm the one behind the scenes doing all the legwork to figure out where we're going to go. And that also holds true for the things that we do while we're there. I will make another list, because I'm a list queen, of all the fun things that we could do, and then take that list with us, and we'll pick and choose together what we're going to do. So, it's okay if it's like, that almost seems like it's out of balance to some people, to your ears maybe, but it's okay because that's what works for us. So find what works for you. And if you take turns, or if one of you does the kind of the heavy lifting and the other, and then share with the other one what's going on, give that honest feedback, and, do things that make you happy together.
That's right. Yeah. And I think we have a pretty good handle on this one. I mean, maybe there's some pieces that we could get better with, but I know once we come up with the idea of what we want to do, a lot of times one of us might jump in, like for example, on this long weekend that we've planned a couple of long weekends. I think, was I the one that I just, one day at work, I had a little bit of time during a lunch break or something, and I knew what we wanted to do, the place we wanted to stay, the days and all that, and I just went ahead and booked it. And it wouldn't have minded me at all, or I wouldn't have cared at all had you one day said, hey, I went ahead and booked this. I know we've already talked about it. We've agreed about it. This is what we want to do. And if you would have booked it, hey, great. But as long as we, know for sure. But I think we will usually come back together and say, hey, I'm getting ready to do this today. Just want to circle back around. You good with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yep.
All right. What
Next
are we,
question.
are you asking this one?
I am.
Okay.
When are you most likely to have a serious argument over an unimportant issue? And this is good because that happens a lot. Like hardcore knockdown, drag out arguments over something that is completely stupid or unimportant, I should say. Okay.
Yeah, on this one, I actually have an answer. Sort of, I'll probably sound like I'm talking from both ends of my mouth, so to speak. But yeah, there are often a lot of times where you might have an argument over something silly, like, again, what movie to watch, or, I don't know, having dessert in the evening. You don't agree on what dessert, and it starts to get a little agitated, a little tense, and maybe there's a blow up, and you're like, wow, this is all over dessert.
Or maybe you're doing the dishes and you drop a plate and break it, and that causes an argument.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But what I will say on the other end of this is, if you dig down, sometimes there is an important issue at play. Like, say, for example, again, if we're arguing about what movie to watch, the reason for the argument, it could be that, again, I always am the one that makes the decisions on everything, and I'm just tired of this. And, that can be an important thing to flesh out. But the problem is we're just sitting here up on the surface arguing about what feels like is silly. And so, again, sometimes, occasionally, there is an underlying issue that is larger at play. But, I will say, somebody told me this once, and it's really stuck with me, that they said sometimes if you argue about unimportant things, think about the acronym HALT, HALT. Think of, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? A lot of times, one of those 4 is going to be at play when you're arguing about something dumb.
That's what I was thinking about, that like there's a strong possibility that someone is very tired, or just tired, like after a long day.
And you could be
at
angry
work or something.
Yeah. And maybe you are angry at your spouse. Maybe there is something there, but the problem is it's something maybe that's happened before that you're letting fester and letting bubble up. And then at a moment of trying to talk about something, that's when it all comes flowing out. Another thing that I've heard that can be helpful for you to know is that if you're hysterical, it's probably historical, meaning that if you, again, blow up, you get angry, you have a disagreement over an unimportant issue, and it's escalated, most likely, again, there's something else that's going on or something that's built up over time. So
right. That's good.
Yep.
That's good.
So
I am looking at the time and
should we wrap it up
thinking,
for today?
Yes, we did not get through all 9 of these.
Okay,
and
so we're going to have a part 2.
Yeah, that's exciting because these are some good questions, and we may do these more often, just, kind of random good questions that you in your marriage may have yourself. So
okay, and I hope you did okay being on the hot seat. I felt okay. I felt like my seat was a little warm, maybe not completely hot. Yours might have been on the sex question. I don't know, but
moving on.
All right. So, well, thank you so much for joining us. This is part 1 of Marriage Q&A with Brian and Heather, and we look forward to episode number 2. And we hope that this has given you some inspiration to open up the lines of communication and really just add some fun into the mix. And before we go, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. Number 1, as we talked about, we used a card deck on couples communication. And while you can't get the deck that we're using, it's for certified facilitators of the Prepare and Rich Marriage program. So Heather and I are marriage mentors, and we use this program. We're certified and trained in it. Unfortunately, I think this card deck is only available to those facilitators. But there's lots of, if you go out to Amazon, and I'm going to put a link, we'll put a link in the show notes to couples communications cards on Amazon. So click that link, and it will give you a whole page worth of card decks. And I'm sure there's some that are just as good, and there's probably ones that are even better or maybe more appropriate for what you're looking for. And then secondly, don't forget, we have a guide called the 10 Practical Communication Strategies. It's free. You just go out, again, to our show notes. If you go to lovehowdeep.com/31, that's the number of this episode, you'll see the link for it. And this guide will help you as a couple have more effective and connecting conversations with each other. And again, it's free. And so with that, we thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We could not do these without you listening, so thank you for that. And we do appreciate your time. And stay tuned for part number 2 next time. Take care until then.